Juan Mata and the way he ran the game, one of the greatest football names of our time, really. He somehow ended up in Australia. He somehow ended up playing in the Melbourne Derby and chose a hell of a game to bring his best. 2 goals, one absolutely outrageous strike from distance over Patrick Beach's head, and to set up Santos for the 3-1 sealer as well. It was honestly just a pleasure to watch such a quality performance in one of Australia's biggest games.
For sure. He was just absolutely awesome. To see Arthur Dillis on the sideline, just think, look, wow, how lucky I am to coach a player of this quality, because the amount of times he's gotten a victory out of trouble, and this is another example of literally taking the game by the scruff of the neck. I think that's how you can probably best describe it. That first half, in particular, obviously he scored that, outrageous goal, chip over the goalkeeper, but it was just sort of everything, right? The way he moves around the pitch, it's like it's effortless. It's like he just, I don't know. It's just so good to watch. And you think, he's 37 years old now. I think sometimes we take it for granted, or we underestimate just how good he is just because of his age. We think, okay, he's 37. He's only, this good because the A-League isn't, obviously doesn't compare to Europe. But this is Juan Mata we're talking about. Like, it's a different kettle of fish. I thought, the whole match, I think he came off in the 90th minute. I think Dillis did that just so the crowd can give him, a standing ovation. You saw even the City supporters stand on their feet, and you just have to appreciate greatness, right? When you're watching a player as good as Mata. He was just absolutely awesome. That second goal as well. The finish, you can't teach that. And then the assist for the third for Santos, just that ball in behind, perfectly weighted. He literally did no wrong. He was just sublime.
Is it to that level, Deck, where even as an opposition supporter, you kind of just see the quality that's in front of you and you kind of have no choice but to respect it, don't you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely have to respect it. I think it was just a guy like that. I think people often forget how good he is. I don't necessarily know why. You don't win a World Cup and play, 400 plus games nearly for some of the biggest clubs on the planet if you're not any good. I think from a City perspective, and I think I tweeted about it, I was just amazed by, we're talking about how good he is, by what I felt the lack of respect that we actually paid him. I think that in terms of, he was just allowed to do whatever he wanted, right? And that's, I think, why we got punished so badly. I think that, how many times was he just operating in absolutely acres of space, right? To just, and I think that, yes, that's a credit to him to be able to move around and find that space. And none of what I'm saying here is discrediting what he's done, but I just felt that the vibe of the City whole game, there was no kind of attention paid to him. It was he's got that class, and he's going to find it. He's probably going to find it easier than anything to be out there when you're playing the way City played yesterday. But to not even it looks like even just try limit him in any capacity. No one really ever got near him the whole night. I don't think he got a kick. I don't think he even got kicked once, right? Which for me in a derby, for a player like that, but I know we laughed at that, but it's almost like that, he does that first thing. So after he does that, someone going behind him, at least just plant that seed in the mind to be like, okay, no matter how good you are, you're not going to have it all easy. But we didn't, and we got rightfully punished. And it's easy enough for guys like that without doing that. And we wore all the brunt of the Juan Mata brilliance last night, unfortunately for us.
I think when you see such a player with such a name, Christian, perform in such a big game as this as well, we can talk about, his impact of 90 minutes of football in the Melbourne Derby, but also on the league as a whole. The Marquee strategy of bringing these big players in to grow the league as a whole has been, a strategy that's definitely worked well in the past and has faded away a fair bit over the last 7 to 8 years. But we saw the international attention that game and Juan's performance over the weekend got. We see Bruno Fernandes and David De Gea posting about it on their socials, and everyone that's connected to them are being exposed to A-League football. We have 2 very different styles of growing the game at the moment. When we look at the Newcastle Jets, who we're going to talk about later, who are just a bunch of young Aussie kids with a few others sprinkled in there who are just playing exciting football and winning games. They're getting 14,000 at McDonald Jones. But that Marquee strategy, especially to grow global attention on the game and get some of those Australian supporters who are more interested in European football. I guarantee you there was a bunch of them there on Saturday night that were there because Juan Mata was playing. So it still proves that that is a genuine strategy as well.
I think it's just about striking the right balance, because about what, maybe 10 or so years ago, we went down the opposite path where we're trying to sign so many marquee players. There were some players in some of these squads that were like, for example, 35 years of age, but you've barely ever heard of them, and they just didn't cut the mustard. And then obviously COVID happened, and then a lot of clubs are switching to this new model of developing young players, selling them off to Europe, gaining a profit, which has obviously benefited the league a lot in terms of our youth development. But then on the same side, we've sort of been crying out for these marquee signings such as Mata, and I think last night proved a perfect example of, you've got players like you mentioned, Bruno Fernandes, posting on Instagram, watching the A-League. You sort of sit back and think, wow, like a player of that caliber for Manchester United is actually watching an A-League game. Like it actually it's hard to sort of sink in sometimes, but I think that's the impact it can have, because, Alessandro Del Piero had the same impact where, TV ratings went up in Italy for the A-League just to watch Del Piero play, just to watch him play. And if you want to market and grow the league, on a more global scale, I know probably it's not as important as if now we've got our own sort of issues to fix, domestically, but that's all part of it, right? To actually grow the game on all levels. And it's just about, like I said, finding that balance between, spending wise money on these marquee players, as long as they're good quality marquee players, right? As long as you know that, you're not just signing them just for the sake of the name and the reputation, just to put bums on seats, but they can actually do that, but also deliver as well on the pitch. And Mata can obviously do both. I had, a couple of friends last night at the Derby who solely went to the game just because of Mata. A couple of Chelsea supporters, EPL fans, and they just gravitate towards the name. Like, okay, I want to watch this guy play. And fair enough, because you see that performance last night, it's no wonder. So then you keep that cycle going. You start signing more players of that caliber. And the casual fans who might think, okay, I'm not really an A-League fan, but I want to go to a game just to watch this particular player. That's how you attract more eyeballs. That's how you get more people to say, oh, okay, the A-League is actually not a bad product. It's, it's actually decent. And then that's how you start to build that fan base. So I think it sort of works both ways.
I still remember the very first time that Robbie Fowler came down to Melbourne to play. It was a game at what is now Marvel Stadium against the Victory. And obviously I was a lot younger and not quite understanding the significance of his career and where he'd come from, and just the math of Liverpool shirts that were rocked in. It wasn't, I think it was North Queensland Fury at the time. It wasn't those shirts, it wasn't anything else. It was Liverpool shirts just flooding Marvel Stadium because of the significance of one player. And I think, if anything, over the last couple of years with some of the other attempts, what we've learnt in the A-League is particularly not only can a player back it up on the field, but what's going on in their head, why are they here, what's the impact that they want to leave on football. And we've seen Mata go, he was in Turkey, I think, for a little while, and then he was in Japan briefly, and now he's come down to Australia. His head and how he talks about wanting to grow the game and make an impact as well is just as important as what he can do with a football on the pitch.
Yeah, 100%. I think that I never really liked the idea of moving away from marquees. I think that so many times with football in Australia, we get too focused on, well, it's absolute, has to be one way, it has to be the other. Like I saw a thing yesterday, maybe we have too much ultra culture, maybe we need to go more traditional English culture, or just things like that, where it's always thing. But it's like, as Christian was saying, why can't we have both? Why can't we celebrate, the youth? And, that's inevitable the way football in Australia is going. But when, marquees clearly work, right, and we're allowed to want to enjoy that, and we're allowed to want to go and watch good players. But and I think that, and this is something that the club's going to have to figure out, is finding that fine line, because it is a really fine line. Because I think over the last few years, like, we haven't had a shortness of quality players coming out here, but are those players coming out here, are they coming out for the right reasons? And it's stuff we always talk about, right? And clearly for Mata, he's ticked all boxes. I think especially credit to him as well, for him to stick around after the after what he went through last year with the Wanderers. not many Marquees, if any Marquees, would have stuck around. But I think it is a testament for the kind of guy he is, and it just proves that he is here for the right reasons, right? As opposed to other people we've had come through. And also outside of Juan Mata, also probably not on the same scale, because he's obviously not the same, I suppose, level of football in terms of knowledge. But what we're seeing from Ryan Fraser done at the Wanderers is absolutely fantastic as well. He's come in. Obviously I'm a bit biased as a Southampton fan, but he was playing Premier League last year. He's played Premier League. He's played high level football, and he's come into a struggling Wanderers team, and it seems like he's here, saying all the right things. He's working his ass off. He clearly cares. He's doing all those right things. So I think we're quite both clubs and both Marquees have we've really hit the jackpot this year. And if clubs can do that more often, I'm all for them, because clearly they work, and we should be able to enjoy them.
Absolutely. And we can't forget as well, if circumstances have been a little bit different, we still have a Douglas Costa playing for Sydney FC as well, who was on a 2-year deal. So as the league changes over the next couple of years, we're going to get a new broadcast deal announced in the next couple of months. That is obviously a big source of revenue for these teams as more money becomes available. Hopefully this, in addition with trusting the Australian youth and backing the local talent and creating something that teams can really create to get their communities around them. I think obviously if we mix and max those strategies together, that's all obviously going to provide the best result.